My live-in mother-in-law manipulated my husband into believing that I was cheating on him, and he wanted me to leave. But then I came across some shady emails, and now mother-in-law's world has turned upside down as she is going to prison. Hi, I'm Carol, 29 female, and I am so happy to be married to my best friend Ben, 29 male. Our story is kind of a whirlwind. We met online about 3 years ago and totally fell head over heels. Ben proposed just 6 months after our first date, and we tied the knot a year after we met. It was crazy fast, I know, but sometimes you just know. Let me back up a bit. I'd always been the type to swipe left more than right on dating apps. Most guys seem so generic, and those cheesy pickup lines, yeesh. But Ben was different. His profile was funny, his pictures were cute, and we just clicked instantly. We texted non-stop for like a week before finally deciding to meet up. Honestly, I was a bit nervous for our first date. What if the connection wasn't the same in person? But the second I saw Ben walking towards me, all my worries melted away. We grabbed coffee and walked around this little park for hours. Talking to him was easy, like we'd been best friends forever. We both loved cheesy sci-fi movies and had the same stupid sense of humor. We totally lost track of time. That first date was the start of the most incredible 6 months. Ben was everything I ever wanted and more. Kind, hilarious, and always there for me. He made me laugh until my stomach hurt, and he fit into my life so seamlessly. We'd go on weekend adventures, binge watch shows till late at night, and just hang out doing nothing at all. I'd never felt so completely myself with any other person. One night, he took me to this rooftop place with a gorgeous view of the city. He'd planned this whole romantic dinner, and halfway through, he got down on one knee. I swear, my heart almost burst out of my chest. I said yes before he could even finish asking. That night still feels like a dream. Our wedding was everything we dreamed of. A small backyard ceremony with close friends and family, followed by a huge party with all our loved ones. It was chaotic, happy, and just so much fun. We danced the night away, and I remember looking out at everyone and feeling so loved. Marriage, at least these first 2 years, has been amazing. Ben still makes me laugh every single day, and we're such a good team. Of course, we have our little disagreements, but we always talk it out and work through it. Our life together is simple, filled with cozy nights, trips to the beach, and endless support for each other's dreams. Before Ben, I wasn't sure if soulmate stuff was real. Sure, I had been in love before, but this was different. Dating was always a bit of a roller coaster, lots of ups and downs with a whole lot of uncertainty. With Ben, there was never a question mark. Things just felt right. I knew I'd found my person, my partner for life. And you know what? I was totally right. However, the one thorn in my relationship with Ben has been his mom, Brenda, 56 female. I don't think she has ever fully accepted me. She's the kind of mom who thinks no one is ever good enough for her son. Ben's her only child, and with his dad passing away a few years back, she's clung to him even tighter. Even though Ben's parents were divorced, they were still quite close. Sometimes, it feels like I'm competing with her for Ben's attention, which is just a weird dynamic. From the get-go, Brenda had this air about her. It was all about subtle things at first, like little backhanded compliments or questioning my choices. Like the time I decided to switch careers and go back to school. She was the first to ask, "But aren't you worried how that'll affect Ben financially?" Or the time that I made dinner for a family dinner, and she oh so sweetly asked if I had looked up the recipe online, because Ben prefers his mom's version, of course. It gets more awkward with the unsolicited advice, whether it's about how to decorate our house, how to raise our future kids, which we're not planning on anytime soon, but she doesn't seem to get the hint, or how to cook Ben proper meals. It's always something. I'll never forget the time that she offered to rehem my curtains for me because they were just a touch too long. Like, who does that? Since Ben's dad passed away, she's become even more intense about him. She drops by our place unannounced all the time, just to check in. If we don't answer her calls immediately, there's always a string of frantic texts. She guilt trips him constantly about not visiting enough, and she's always inviting herself along on our plans. We had this whole romantic weekend getaway planned for our anniversary, and somehow, she managed to weasel her way in, turning it into this awkward family trip. Don't get me wrong, I understand that she's grieving and that Ben is all she has. I do try to be patient and understanding with her, but it's tough. It feels like she's constantly undermining me and making me feel like I'll never be good enough for her son. It puts a strain on things, and sometimes I just want to shout, "He's my husband now, lady." A few months ago, Brenda started talking about how her health was deteriorating. It started with vague things, feeling a bit dizzy sometimes, forgetting where she put her keys, a general sense of tiredness. At first, I talked it up to her getting older. We all have those moments, right? But then things began to escalate. One afternoon, she called Ben in a panic, claiming she'd almost fainted at the grocery store. Another time, she swore she had a mild heart attack, but insisted she didn't need to go to the hospital. She'd play these incidents down when Ben pressed her about it, but the stories kept getting more dramatic. Of course, Ben was worried sick. He'd drop everything to rush over and check on her, which sometimes meant canceling our plans or leaving work early. She started calling him multiple times a day, always some new health issue popping up. I felt for him, I truly did, but it was starting to feel like a never-ending cycle of drama. Honestly, a part of me started wondering if some of it was exaggerated. Was she doing it for attention? To make Ben feel guilty for not being around enough? It's a terrible thought, I know. But sometimes, the timing was too convenient. One weekend, we had tickets to this concert we were really excited about. And wouldn't you know, Brenda had a migraine that needed immediate hands-on care. I try to hide it, but I think Brenda sensed my frustration. The other day, she looked at me over dinner and said, "You probably wish I'd just disappeared, don't you?" I was horrified. I stammered something about supporting Ben and caring about her well-being, but the damage was done. The tension at the dinner table was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Part of me knows she's just trying to guilt trip me, but it still stings. Sometimes I can't help but wonder if it'll always be like this. Me on the outside, watching Ben be pulled into her endless whirlwind of worries. Then one night, Ben dropped a bombshell. We were having dinner, and out of nowhere, he said, "Carol, I've been thinking, maybe Mom should move in with us." My fork clattered against my plate. Was he serious? He explained that he was worried sick about her living alone. The health scares were getting more frequent, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something bad would happen when he wasn't around. The guilt was eating him alive, and he felt like having her close by would be the only way to get some peace of mind. Inside, I was panicking. I love Ben, I really do, but the thought of living with Brenda, full-time? It felt like a recipe for disaster. I could already envision all my worst nightmares coming true. The constant critiques, the unsolicited advice, the guilt trips magnified tenfold. Yet, a huge part of me wanted to be supportive. I could see the toll his worry was taking on him, and I hated being the reason we couldn't help his mom. After a sleepless night, I told Ben I thought it was a good idea, but only temporarily. We agreed to a trial period and made a plan to convert our guest room into a proper space for Brenda. The moving day was awkward to say the least. Brenda arrived with more suitcases than I thought possible for one person and gave me a tight-lipped smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I could feel the judgment radiating off her as she surveyed our house, her gaze lingering on things like our mismatched furniture or the stack of magazines on the coffee table. Living with Brenda turned into this constant battle of wills, most of them silent and fighting over seemingly minor things. It started with the decor. Suddenly, our minimalist living room was filled with framed family photos and doilies I'm pretty sure came from the 80s. My favorite throw pillows vanished, replaced by some itchy, crotched thing that looked like a weapon. She even tried to put floral wallpaper in the bathroom. The kitchen became a war zone. I would wake up to find all my pots and pans reorganized, my neatly labeled spice jars replaced with an undecipherable jumble. She refused to use the dishwasher, convinced it didn't get things properly clean, and would passively-aggressively rewash dishes I'd already done. Cooking dinner became an exercise in frustration, with her hovering over my shoulder, quote-unquote suggesting additions of obscure herbs and spices I couldn't even pronounce. It wasn't just the house either. She would comment on my outfits. A bit too much like for a Tuesday, isn't it, dear? Offer critiques on my makeup, and even try to reorganize my closet. It felt like an invasion on every level, like somehow, by moving in, she was marking her territory and trying to erase any trace of me from our home. Brenda's reign of domestic terror didn't stop at just the kitchen and decor. Every corner of our house seemed to sprout evidence of her takeover. Our once peaceful bedroom became cluttered with her half-finished knitting projects and random knickknacks. She would commandeer the bathroom for inordinately long periods, leaving behind a haze of hairspray and a damp towel haphazardly thrown on the floor. Even my office wasn't safe. One day, I came home to find my meticulously organized desk rearranged, my files improved according to some bizarre system known only to Brenda. It was like a strange power play, a constant reminder that I was no longer fully in control of my own space. The most frustrating thing was that Ben didn't seem to notice, or maybe he just chose to ignore it. He was just relieved his mom was safe and being looked after. Sometimes, late at night, I would hear them giggling in the kitchen, and a wave of anger and loneliness would wash over me. Had I become some kind of outsider in my own marriage? The whole temporary arrangement started stretching on and on. Every time I tried to bring up the subject with Ben, he would get defensive or change the topic. I could see the stress weighing him down, and I didn't want to make things worse. So I'd grit my teeth, make a passive-aggressive comment about my missing throw pillows, and try to salvage what was left of my sanity. However, I never expected her to do what she did last week. It was a Wednesday, I think. I was working from home, on a conference call in my office, when Ben came barging in, his face a furious shade of red. "How could you do this to me?" he practically yelled. I blinked, utterly confused. "Do what? Ben, are you okay?" My heart was pounding, that sinking feeling of dread settling in my stomach. "Don't play dumb. Mom told me everything." Everything? What was he talking about? Ben was angry and yelled at me. "You've been cheating on me. There's proof, Carol. How could you lie to me like this?" Cheating? The accusation hit me like a physical blow. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. There had to be a mistake, some misunderstanding. "Ben, please, I haven't been cheating on you. I swear I have no idea what this is about." But he wasn't listening. His eyes were filled with such fury, such hurt, that a part of me broke inside. "Just stop lying. Get out. Get out of this house. I don't want to see you ever again." My throat closed up, choking on unshed tears. Ben wouldn't even look at me, his whole body radiating anger and betrayal. He didn't mention specific dates, details, or anything at who this supposed affair was with. Just vague accusations are thrown in my face, with proof apparently provided by his dearest mother. After Ben stormed out, my first instinct was anger. How could he jump to conclusions like that, believing his mom over me? But the anger quickly dissolved into a cold, sickening dread. We'd been so happy, and now everything felt like it was crumbling apart. I couldn't imagine my life without Ben. I paced around the house, trying to clear my head. How the hell did Brenda quote-unquote overhear me planning a secret rendezvous? I racked my brain. Could she have picked up bits of a conversation and jumped to the wildest conclusion imaginable? It seemed insane, but then again, Brenda wasn't exactly known for her level-headedness. When Ben finally came back, it was late. He smelled of stale beer and heartbreak. The sight of him, shoulders slumped and tears streaking his face, shattered whatever anger I'd clung to. All I could do was pull him into a hug and let him cry. "Carol, how could you?" he choked out between sobs. "I thought we were perfect. I trusted you." The guilt of hurting him, even though I'd done absolutely nothing wrong, was suffocating. "Ben, please listen to me," I pleaded. "I swear I love you. There's no one else." He mumbled something about Brenda overhearing me, about a phone call in a hotel. Suddenly it clicked. My best friend Sarah. A few weeks ago, we'd planned a surprise birthday getaway. A fancy hotel, spa treatments, the whole works. We'd even joked about how we were way too old for the cheap motels we usually ended up in. Could Brenda have overheard pieces of that conversation and deliberately twisted it? Had she orchestrated this whole thing to drive a wedge between Ben and me? Rage started to burn in my chest, but before I could say anything, Ben passed out, his breathing heavy and uneven. After making sure Ben was asleep, I stormed into Brenda's room. Forget the guilt, I was running on pure anger now. The woman was a walking tornado, and I needed to find proof she was the one who started this whole mess. She was sprawled out snoring, her laptop still open like an invitation. Fine, Brenda, you asked for it. With shaking hands, I started clicking through her stuff. Emails, boring documents, then boom, something about disability claim pops up. Wait, disability for Ben's dad? But he's been dead for years. A horrible thought started creeping in. Could she be getting his benefits? That's messed up, even for Brenda. Driven by a mix of rage and a weird need to know the truth, I dug deeper. Bank statements popped up showing regular deposits marked disability, long after his death. My jaw practically dropped. My sweet, meddling mother-in-law wasn't just annoying, she was a straight-up criminal. Suddenly, it wasn't just about me and Ben anymore. My mind scrambled. Could she go to jail? How would that wreck Ben, who was already a mess thinking I cheated? On the other hand, how could I let this slide? Stealing from the government, profiting off a dead man. There had to be a line somewhere, right? I snapped a few screenshots, evidence, just in case this got even uglier, shut her laptop, and crept out with my heart pounding. It was like something out of a twisted soap opera, the kind of drama I usually mocked on TV. But this was my life now, thanks to Brenda and her crazy schemes. Sleep was impossible that night. I tossed and turned, the evidence against Brenda burning in my mind, mixed with a nauseating worry for Ben. When the first rays of dawn peeked through the blinds, I knew I couldn't wait. I needed to confront Brenda before Ben woke up, before his fragile trust in me shattered completely. I found her in the kitchen, pretending to make breakfast like everything was normal. "Brenda, we need to talk," I said, my voice steely. She jumped, that fake smile faltering. "About what, dear?" Was it something I said? I cut her off. "You heard me on the phone with my friend Sarah, planning a surprise trip," I stated bluntly. And instead of, I don't know, clarifying things with me like a normal person, you twisted it into this whole cheating lie. She blustered, cheeks turning red. "It wasn't Sarah. It was a man's voice. And I know what I heard. Cut the crap, Brenda," I snapped, anger and frustration bubbling over. "You've caused enough damage. Ben thinks I'm some two-timing monster, all because of you." My voice cracked, the hurt finally seeping through. "Now, either you tell Ben the truth," I continued, "or I'm walking straight to the police. I have screenshots, bank records, and the whole 9 yards. You're going down for fraud." Her eyes widened, and then that defiance returned. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed. "That's blackmail. Call it whatever you want," I shot back. "I'm not letting you ruin my marriage and get away with stealing." "Your choice, Brenda. You tell Ben the truth, or I will." Something shifted in her eyes then. A flicker of fear, maybe even a silver of guilt. For a tense moment, we stood locked in a silent battle of wills. Then her shoulders slumped. "Fine," she muttered. I'll talk to him." It wasn't the apology I craved, but it was a start. A way to begin fixing the mess she'd created. When Ben finally woke up, groggy and red-eyed, I could feel the tension in the air. Brenda played the apologetic mother-in-law routine surprisingly well. "Oh, Ben, sweetie, I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake." She spun some story about being stressed and misheard bits of my conversation with Sarah, mistaking spa treatments for whatever scandalous rendezvous she'd imagined. Ben was stunned, brows furrowed in confusion, his gaze flicked between Brenda and me like he was trying to piece together this impossible puzzle. "But yesterday you were so sure." His voice was hers, filled with a mix of hurt and disbelief. Brenda fumbled for excuses. "I don't know, honey. I guess I panicked hearing Carol on the phone." She even squeezed out a couple of fake tears, the whole performance worthy of an award she didn't deserve. Frustration boiled in my gut. This woman, who'd made my life a living hell, was now playing the victim. Ben's eyes filled with tears as he turned towards me. "Carol, I'm so sorry." He rushed over, enveloping me in a desperate hug. "I was out of my mind with hurt, and I just couldn't imagine," he trailed off. the shame weighing down his words. Guilt washed over me. Here he was, broken and remorseful, and my own heart was strangely numb. Sure, the truth was out. The cheating lie cleared up, but something deeper had cracked inside me. This man I loved, my husband, had banished me from our home based on a single accusation from his mother, without a second thought. All those months of trying to make things work with Brenda, biting my tongue, gritting my teeth, and yet none of that had mattered the instant she planted that seed of doubt. Suddenly, instead of relief, I felt a surge of anger mixed with a bone-deep weariness. I watched the flicker of shock and confusion in Ben's eyes. Part of me felt bad for unloading on him when he was clearly hurting too. But that hurt had festered, transforming into something I didn't fully recognize. "Don't you see, Ben," I continued, my voice quieter but no less charged. "I've spent so much time walking on eggshells around Brenda, trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law. And for what? The second she paints me as the villain, you believe her without question. Does my word, our history together, mean nothing?" Silence hung between us, broken only by Brenda's quiet sniffle, a pathetic attempt to regain some control of the situation. Ben looked trapped, caught between his love for me and his ingrained loyalty to his mother. "Look, I need some space," I said. "I need to think about all this, away from the drama. I needed to untangle my own feelings and figure out if the shattered pieces of our trust could ever truly be put back together." The words hung heavy in the air between us, his eyes widened in realization, that familiar flicker of guilt crossing his features again. "Carol, I didn't mean to." He stumbled over his words, desperately trying to explain. But I wasn't having it. "It doesn't matter what you meant, Ben. It matters that our whole relationship went up in flames because of one conversation with your mother." My voice cracked with emotion, the hurt I'd tried to bury finally spilling over. "I need time, Ben. Time to figure out this, if we can come back from this." While Ben sobbed and pleaded for me to stay, I packed my bags with a cold, detached efficiency. Something inside me had clicked, and a switch flipped, bringing a chilling clarity to the situation. It was almost like I was outside of my own body, watching this broken scene as if it were someone else's drama. Before I left, I couldn't help but throw a parting shot. "You two better enjoy this time together," I said, my voice sharper than I intended, "because pretty soon, Brenda, you'll be swapping your fancy home for a jail cell." Ben's eyes widened. "Carol, what are you talking about?" He looked bewildered, his focus shifting between me and his mother. "Ask your dear mommy," I replied, unable to mask the bitterness in my tone. Then I was gone, leaving them both to grapple with the fallout. My phone buzzed incessantly as I drove towards Sarah's place. Ben left desperate voicemails, a mix of apologies and confusion. Brenda's text switched abruptly between attempted apologies, "Think of Ben, dear, family comes first," to venom-filled insults, accusing me of destroying her life and being an ungrateful, entitled brat. Honestly, part of me felt a savage satisfaction watching their world crumble. Brenda had spent months tormenting me, turning my life into a constant battle, and there was a dark corner of my heart that relished seeing her lose control. Yet, the bigger questions were gnawing at me. Should I give Ben another chance? Could we rebuild the trust that had been so carelessly shattered? And what about Brenda? Could I really go through with reporting her, knowing it would destroy Ben on some level, even though he desperately needed to break free from her unhealthy influence? What do you guys think? I'm losing my mind over here, so any suggestions would help. Hey everyone, thanks for all the advice. I know I disappeared for a bit. Things have been absolutely insane, and it took a while to process it all. Here's an update. I did end up calling Social Security. After a lot of back and forth, and honestly, me feeling super guilty, they did investigate. Brenda didn't go to prison, thankfully. I couldn't do that to Ben, but it wasn't a slap on the wrist either. She's facing some pretty hefty fines. The exact amount, I'm not sure. And she'll be on parole for a year. The whole thing was messy and complicated. Ben was devastated when he found out the full extent of his mom's lies, yet somehow, still felt protective of her. It's been a lot of intense conversations, trying to find a balance between supporting him and not letting Brenda walk all over us. Honestly, it's still a work in progress. As you can imagine, Brenda wasn't thrilled with the consequences. She had to sell the huge house of hers to start paying back what she owed. And even with Ben pitching in a bit, it wasn't nearly enough. That's when things got interesting. After months of heated arguments and agonizing over what was right, Ben finally did what he should have done ages ago. He kicked Brenda out. It was rough, full of tears and guilt, mostly on his part, but he finally stood his ground. She ended up getting a tiny studio apartment, and guess what? She actually had to get a part-time job, since those fragile and disability checks weren't rolling in anymore. Honestly, there's a petty side of me that finds it a bit satisfying. Like, it serves her right for being so manipulative and entitled all these years. But I also see how it's weighing on Ben. It's his mom after all, and seeing her struggle isn't easy on him. He visits her sometimes and helps her out when he can, but he's made it clear that she's not moving back in with us, ever. As for Ben and me, well, we're back under the same roof. Married, yes. But it would be a lie to say that our problems are magically fixed. I did move back in, but with one condition. We get serious about counseling. It wasn't a debate. That was my non-negotiable. Thankfully, Ben agreed, and we've been going to therapy ever since. Those sessions, let's just say that they haven't been easy. It's like opening up old wounds, digging through all the hurt and betrayal, unpacking Ben's deep-rooted trust issues. Let me tell you, that's some emotionally heavy lifting. It's slow, painful progress, made up of small victories and setbacks. There are days when I feel hopeful, when Ben opens up, truly listens, and I see the effort he's making to rebuild what we had. Then there are days when that flicker of doubt in his eyes hits me like a punch in the gut. The nights when I wake up in a cold sweat, the accusation of cheating still echoes in my ears, even though he knows the truth now, but I am still hopeful for our future. You'd think Brenda might have learned her lesson, right? Wrong. Turns out, old habits die hard. Barely a week passed after my last update, and she was back to her manipulative ways. Suddenly, she was all aches and pain, fake illnesses popping up left and right, all designed to get Ben running to her beck and call 24/7. It was exhausting to watch. The guilt trips, the exaggerated sighs. Part of me wanted to laugh at how predictable it was, but I almost felt anger, mixed with a deep sadness for Ben. He would fall for it every time, rushing over with groceries or paying nursemaid, while his mother milked it for all it was worth. Finally, after one particularly dramatic episode involving a sprained ankle that miraculously healed overnight, Ben reached his limit. He sat her down and had a serious talk. It wasn't a blowout or anything, but he was firm. He told her that if she truly needed constant care, the best solution was an assisted living facility. Nice ones exist, and he would gladly cover the costs. Well, let me tell you, the theatrics suddenly vanished. Those phantom pains dried up faster than a desert puddle. Turns out, Brenda wasn't so keen on losing her independence, and even less excited about the idea of actual nurses calling her bluff. The daily calls dwindled, and now we barely hear from her at all. Ben still visits occasionally, and I don't begrudge him that. I stay far away though. No way am I stepping foot in that cramped little apartment, and she's definitely not setting foot in our house again. Has she apologized for the mess she made? Of course not. And honestly, even if she did, I don't know if I could truly forgive her. Hi guys, it's been a month since my last update, and I finally have some new information. Yesterday, after a lot of requests, I finally let Brenda come into our home to apologize to me. She came and told me that she lied and she doesn't know why she did it, but she knows what she did was wrong. Honestly, the apology seems so fake, but I knew just how Ben was upset. So I told her that I couldn't forgive her for what she did, but I could move past it. After she left, I told Ben that I was ready to move on with this, but slowly. I still don't want to interact much with Brenda, and he understood. We're also doing well. Therapy has been helping a lot, but we still have a long way to go. That was a wrap up for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me, and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you in the next one.